Yes, it's spring training. No, the games don't count. No, it doesn't necessarily translate. But the Giants have had a great spring, record-wise and performance-wise. And here's why Bob Melvin thinks there are some things that could carry over into the regular season.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. Been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for almost 6 full years, coming up on that actually in like 10 days. And I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already. And please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. And coming up on today's show, we're going to, finally touch upon the fact that the Giants have just been dominating in spring training. I have not spent much time on this topic because I am definitely of the firm belief that spring training results, particularly your record, it just doesn't have much, if any, correlation with regular season success. The Padres have the worst record in the Cactus League. The Giants, though, are 13-4-3, so 3 ties. The Blue Jays are 12-6, leading the Grapefruit League. So the Giants have the best record going of any team, and that's even with a loss today to the Texas Rangers. So what, if anything, can we take away from it? Well, my gut reaction is to say not much, but there is maybe a psychological component, especially with changes already happening for the organization, particularly with Buster Posey taking over as president of baseball operations. So just to see like clean baseball being played in spring, and look, there are 2 weeks left until opening day. And yes, today is the day when it's opening day is on a Thursday, 2 weeks from today. And so that's very exciting, but there's more spring games to play. The Giants could fall apart and end up with like a 500 record in spring. We just don't know. But, Bob Melvin had some comments on this topic, and I'm going to cite Shayna Rubin of the San Francisco Chronicle, who wrote an article called "What to Make of Giants' Strong Spring? Bob Melvin Encouraged by These Key Stats." So immediately we jump into a quote from Bob Melvin, courtesy of Shayna Rubin. And Melvin says, on the offensive end with the situational hitting and stuff, we've gotten to a level where we expect, I guess he just means situational hitting and stuff. We've gotten to a level where we expect to be and where playoff teams are. And so that's interesting. He seems to be pointing out that they're tracking some kind of probably less advanced metric, but like, I don't know, average with runners in scoring position, also like success rate on driving in runners from third with less than 2 outs, stuff like that. And he goes, you look at the numbers overall, turning the page, he says from ERA to run differential to how we've done in those situational at-bats, to this point, it's been really good. It's been a good spring for us to this point, and everybody is pretty excited about it. And so, yeah, like I said, he mentions the psychological component there when he said everybody is pretty excited about it. And so I would imagine the players, there's some players who are just having ridiculously great springs like Matt Chapman, but also I'm sure like Buster Posey in his first year as president of baseball operations, Zach Manassian in his first year as general manager, just encouraged by some of the things they're seeing. And so there are some things that are actually, I think, relevant that we'll get into here. So Rubin says, on the other end, coach's insistence that the pitching staff pound the zone and stay aggressive is paying off. As a staff, through 19 games, the Giants have walked the fewest batters of any club by a wide margin. Their 44 leads the leads the second best New York Yankees by 15. So they have 15 fewer walks than the next closest team. As such, they lead all teams with a 1.17 whip, which is walks plus hits per innings pitched, and sit only behind the Atlanta Braves and New York Mets with a 3.48 ERA. And keep in mind, this is a 3.48 ERA in the Cactus League. And I think the Mets, and Braves play in Florida. And I want to say, just without having the data, that the environment in Arizona is tougher to pitch in. And the Giants' home ballpark at Scottsdale Stadium is a pretty tough place to pitch. And so a 3.48 ERA, very good. Anyway, Shane Rubin continues, pounding the zone is such a point of emphasis that they've made strike throwing into a team-wide competition where the strike percentage leader from the previous game wins a Starbucks gift card or a pack of golf balls and has a goofy childhood photo broadcast over the television screens in the Scottsdale Stadium clubhouse. Justin Verlander, the strike zone winner after his 5-inning start against the Athletics, had his high school ball photos flashing on Wednesday morning. And then Tristan Beck, who's someone we're going to talk about in just a minute, she says, when Wednesday's starter Tristan Beck threw a first pitch strike to 6 of the 8 batters he faced and threw 30 of the 41 total pitches for strikes. So this is where it does feel relevant to me. They're putting a big emphasis on it, and they're doing it, and they're having results that are leading to the fact that, they've walked 15 fewer batters than anyone else, and that was going into maybe today. I don't know exactly what, I think this was published yesterday, but Robbie Ray made a start today and walked none. And that's Robbie Ray, who's not exactly known for his strike throwing. And so that's huge. Robbie Ray, looking at the box score today, Giants did lose, like I said, 4 1/3, 8 strikeouts, no walks. So you love to see that. And so anyway, Rubin continues and says of Tristan Beck, who we'll get into again later, said, with a long line of pitchers vying for the 5th rotation spot, Beck's best bet to contribute to the big league team this year is as a long reliever, but the 27-year-old is happy to be pitching in spring again after he missed most of spring and nearly all of the season after undergoing surgery to remove an aneurysm in his upper throwing arm last year. And Beck said, the big focus of this camp has been strike throwing, and beyond that, just challenging hitters. A lot of the numbers support the fact that throwing strikes, pounding the zone, putting the pressure on the hitters to consistently beat you to the spot, get hits, and drive in runs has been a huge thing, and it's a daily emphasis. Beck also said, the couple of losses we've had in this camp, we haven't been throwing a lot of strikes. And even anecdotally, personally, every free pass I give up comes around to score. That's been the big one. Less about throwing strikes. It's about competing and trusting your stuff. That's more the mentality we're going for, which is, hey, we're going to run head first into this and make adjustments if we need to. But so far, it's been going pretty well. And indeed it has, with their record of 13-4-3, which leads, like I said, all of baseball this spring. So more on Tristan Beck and his attempts to carve out a role on this team. He looked to have one going into last year, but then missed all of last year for the most part, came back late. So we'll get into him and then make an opening day roster prediction in just a minute, our first of the year. And before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. There's all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. There's easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, as promised, we are going to get into the story of Tristan Beck and his attempts at coming back into the fold here as opening day nears. Is there a spot for Tristan Beck on this roster? And if so, what is the role? Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers will be back with you tomorrow with the latest from spring training. Also, tomorrow evening, we'll be recording our NL West preview show. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to air, either next week or the following week, but I'll be sure to get some shots in at my NL West foes there, and that's going to be recorded tomorrow night. So anyway, that's just to let you know, to keep you in the loop. So anyway, moving on, there was a lot written about Tristan Beck because he did make a start yesterday on Wednesday, and in that appearance, the Giants won 11-2 over the Guardians, and Tristan Beck went 2 2/3, allowed one hit, I believe it was a homer, yeah it was, 3 strikeouts, no walks, once again, Giants starter with no walks allowed. And is he going to crack the opening day roster? Well, I'll give you my full thoughts on that when we do our first opening day roster prediction coming up in the third segment of the show today. But for Tristan Beck, this is a guy who last year appeared in 7 games, and the plan was to appear in a lot more than that. He did pitch in AAA, and he made 5 starts in AAA, like as he was rehabbing from the surgery to repair an aneurysm. But in the previous year, 2023, he appeared in 33 games, made 3 starts, 85 innings, 3.92 ERA, 3.71 expected ERA. And that was his rookie season. And so it was an impressive showing for Tristan Beck's rookie season. And just to remind everyone where Tristan Beck came from, he was acquired in that Mark Melancon trade where, you know, Farhan Zaidi takes a lot of heat, but there's a lot of little moves like this that are just definitely wins in terms of how I see them, where they got rid of Mark Melancon, who nobody was thrilled about having on the Giants at the contract, especially that he was on, and they got the Braves to take the entire thing and give the Giants Tristan Beck and others in that trade. And so that's where Tristan Beck came from. He's only 28 years old, turns 29 in the middle of the year in late June. He has 2 minor league option years remaining, and he only has close to 2 years of service time. So he's under team control for multiple more seasons. He has optionability, which could affect whether or not he makes the team. But you look at the projections, like the Steamer projections, for example, have him pitching 46 games, 46 innings. So pure reliever projection for Beck based on Steamer, and an ERA projection of 3.85. And this ATC projection system, 48 innings, 36 games, 1 start. It's just kind of, the computer is just kind of guessing based on history. 3.92 ERA. The other projections are in the low or low mid 4s. So overall, maybe a projection for him of an ERA close-ish to 4. But he also has only pitched 101 major league innings. But I've liked what I've seen from Tristan Beck when he's been out there. But they do have a number of players who have seemingly piggybacked him on the depth chart when it comes to starting rotation options, which speaks to their depth, because I think on a lot of teams, Tristan Beck would be a pretty solid candidate to be, somebody who would potentially be a starter. So Alex Pavlovich wrote a piece called Giants Notes, Beck Makes Roster Case as Team Wins 8th Straight. And this was after yesterday's game that I said he started. So Pavlovich wrote, the 161st game of the 2024 MLB season was not one that anyone will remember. The Giants edged the St. Louis Cardinals in a matchup of disappointing teams that had long since been eliminated from the playoff race. But for Tristan Beck, that game was huge. Beck threw 4 innings and allowed 1 run in his first start of the year. But it's not the result that was meaningful. It was the fact that he got to empty the tank with 72 pitches at the end of a year that started with a scary diagnosis. So as I mentioned earlier, and Pavlovich says here, Beck missed most of the season after needing surgery last March to remove an aneurysm from his upper right arm. He waited patiently for 3 months for the small wound to get back to a point where he could safely throw and break a sweat, and he made it back to the big leagues in September. And then Beck said, being able to turn in a 4-inning outing, it just really personally gave me the confidence to get into a normal offseason and kind of leave the injury behind me. So that is huge. You love to see that when guys are able to do that at the end of the year. So Pavlovich says Beck now is 1 year and 1 week removed from surgery, and all is normal. Like a half dozen other young pitchers in camp, he only has to worry about one thing, trying to win a job. Pavlovich continues, Beck finds himself as part of a large crowd, in part because of what happened while he was sidelined. Hayden Birdsong and Landon Roop broke through as rotation options, and Sean Jelly locked up a role in the bullpen, with Randy Rodriguez emerging as another right-hander to give the Giants 1 inning or 3. They all are joined this spring by the usual collection of non-roster invitees, which includes Lou Trevino and Joey Lucchesi, who combined Wednesday to throw 3 scoreless innings in relief of Beck. Beck had thrown just 4 innings coming into Wednesday's game, but the staff wanted to reward him with a start, and he allowed 1 run, struck out 3 in 2 2/3 innings. Manager Bob Melvin said Beck currently is viewed as more of a long relief option than anything else, but that could be a role that's open in the bullpen at the end of camp. Bob Melvin said, quote, he's a guy that can pitch in a number of roles. We just need to get a few more looks at him. So it seems to me that it remains to be seen whether or not Tristan Beck is on the opening day roster. And I think that again speaks to the pitching depth that the Giants have, because not only would Tristan Beck crack a lot of teams, back end of their starting rotation as a intriguing youngish or like inexperienced pitcher who can be a starter, but if they can't even squeeze him into the bullpen, then I do think they have they definitely have really good pitching depth. And I mean like intriguing, oftentimes young pitching depth. One of the big challenges for me when I'm going to do this roster prediction in just a minute is the bullpen and guessing on whether these non-roster invitees make the team or not. Do you give a Lou Trevino the job over a Tristan Beck? Could it come down to the fact that Beck can be optioned and Trevino, it's a minor league contract, but it probably has an opt-out? Like he could just, if the Giants say you're not going to make the team, a lot of times these non-roster invitees have the choice to opt out of their contract and hit free agency again and try to catch on with another team after they've kind of showcased themselves in spring with the team they signed the minor league deal with, in this case, for Trevino, the Giants. And so that happens all the time. So it totally remains to be seen. Like this 26-man roster, there's a lot of spots that are no question. Like they're just assuming health, which we should never do, but assuming health, there's a lot of spots that are just locked down. But there's also some seriously not locked down spots. And that's especially true, I think, in the bullpen, which is not to say they don't lack options. It's more like they have so many options that it's just kind of, I bet you it would be really hard to guess. Like if we all made took a stab at who's going to be in that bullpen, it might be that nobody's correct. Like it's that difficult to predict, in my opinion. Let's do it. Let's have a competition and see if anyone can name exactly what that bullpen looks like going into the season. So I'm going to take my best shot at it, at my first shot at it. We're going to, as we get closer to opening day next week, and then probably early the week of opening day, we'll continue to make those predictions until that final roster comes out, whatever it is, like the day before opening day or so, as we get close. All right, so I'm gonna take my shot at it in just a minute, and before I do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, hello on YouTube, you can see I've got some right here, or on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, here we go. We are going to get into my opening day roster prediction. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Very excited. We are just 2 weeks away from opening day. Giants will be in Cincinnati. Then they go to Houston, and then they come home, I believe. Like, I'm excited because we get to talk about a schedule. We get to talk about real games coming up. So every dayers tomorrow, the latest from spring training. My mind is starting to drift, though, from spring training. We're barely over a week away from the Giants being back in San Francisco. They play the River Cats a week from Sunday in Sacramento, not the A's in Sacramento, but the River Cats, the AAA team. Same stadium, AAA team, same stadium that the A's will be playing Major League games in. And then the Tigers for 2 at home instead of the A's. So that's going to be weird, but that's the 24th and 25th, off the 26th, and then in Cincinnati on the 27th for opening day. All right. So I'm going to get the easy ones out of the way first. And we're going to assume, I'm not going to go out on some crazy limb here and say that players will be traded. I can't possibly make that prediction. But I'm just going to go, okay, what's my lineup on opening day against a right-handed pitcher, which is very likely what the Giants will see. So I'm going Lamont Wade Jr., certainly on this team if healthy, no question about it. So, and I've got him playing first on opening day. Now, playing shortstop and batting second, I'm going Willy Adames. Batting third, playing center field, Jung-Hoo Lee. Batting fourth, playing third base, Matt Chapman. Batting fifth becomes a little bit more of a question. Is it Elliot Ramos against a righty, or is it Mike Yastrzemski against a righty? I'm going to say Elliot Ramos, just because, why not? Playing left. So there you go. Another new left fielder on opening day. We'll hear about it yet again. Different left fielder every year since Bonds' final year. And then batting sixth, I'm going to go Mike Yastrzemski playing right field. And batting seventh, this is all kind of just guesswork. I'll go with Tyler Fitzgerald And batting eighth, we'll go with, I don't know, either Gerard Encarnacion or Wilmer Flores. I think Bob Melvin said that it's going to be Wilmer Flores playing DH on opening day, or at least one of the writers wrote that, and so I believe it. And batting ninth, we'll go Patrick Bailey. As great of a player as he's been, it's largely been due to defense. So there you go. There's my opening day lineup in some order. I think that will be the group that's out there, assuming health, which we should never do, but if they're healthy. So the bench, it gets a little tricky already because, okay, I think Gerard Encarnacion becomes the 10th player on this team. He's out of options. I don't see them just cutting bait with him, given we've talked about him a lot this spring and this off season, and how there's a lot of intrigue there. I would prefer almost that he's in there on opening day as the DH, and Flores can pinch hit for Wade at some point if there's a lefty that comes in. But Encarnacion, he can play first too, and you could pinch hit with Encarnacion, and well, you can't take out the DH. So I don't know. I'd prefer that they not mess around like that, but whatever. Encarnacion, I think, makes this team pretty easily. And the rest of the spots, I mean, if you look at roster resource and what they're currently projecting, that's a little roster resource page on Fangraphs, and it's very, very useful as a resource. And they've got Sam Huff as the backup catcher, Luis Matos making the team, kind of platooning with Mike Yastrzemski to start the year. I think that that's correct, so I'm going to go Luis Matos as my 11th player. And they've got Brett Wisely making the team. I'm not sure about that. I think it could be Casey Schmidt. Kind of have to consider, what does your AAA roster look like? Do you need a third baseman there? I'm not saying you make the decision solely based on that, but David Villar is out of options. Could be David Villar, but I think they need a backup shortstop. And Schmidt has not been the best at that, and I think Wisely can handle it maybe a little bit better, but I'm kind of torn between Brett Wisely and Casey Schmidt. I think it comes down more so to, do you need a lefty or a righty, or do you want a lefty or a righty? And so I look at who's getting pinch hit for, and it's Mike Yastrzemski, but you've got Luis Matos. It's Lamont Wade, but you've got Wilmer Flores and Encarnacion. So who else is getting pinch hit for? It's really nobody. Wilmer Flores, I suppose, maybe. And then you maybe want a lefty, but I don't think I'm taking out Flores for Wisely under any circumstances, really. And so I could see it being a real battle between Wisely and Schmidt. And I want to say Wisely just because he's left-handed, but I also want to say Schmidt because I think the ceiling is higher with Casey Schmidt. So I'm going to say to heck with it and go Casey Schmidt as the 12th player and Sam Huff as number 13 because he is out of minor league options. And I probably should have looked at this beforehand, but to me, it's a battle between Max Stassi and Sam Huff. Sam Huff is on the 40-man, though, and out of minor league options, and has hit well this spring, although he struck out 41% of the time. Max Stassi, meanwhile, has not hit very well, but he's a really good defender, but he's struck out 47% of the time. So I'm going to go with the guy who's on the 40-man and out of options in Sam Huff as my 13th position player. So getting to the pitchers, and I hope they keep Max Stassi. Like, that could factor in. Again, he's one of these non-roster guys, and so he could opt out potentially. I don't know. They don't really report these things, whether he can opt out. Stassi is 34, by the way, and Sam Huff is 27. And so that could factor into it as well. It's basically a question of, do you want more offense or do you want more defense? And you've already got the defense with Bailey, and so maybe you go with someone who can potentially hit in Sam Huff. And also, they're both right-handed, so that complements Bailey well. It's tough. Like, Wisely versus Schmidt and Huff versus Stassi, tough calls both ways. Both Wisely and Schmidt have a minor league option year remaining, whereas, again, David Villar does not, but I don't see him making the team. All right, so the pitchers, there's some easy ones too. We've got Logan Webb, obviously. We've got Justin Verlander. We've got Robbie Ray. We've got Jordan Hicks. I'm writing down the numbers here as I look at it. And then I think that the front runner, is probably Landon Roop to be that fifth starter, although it could be Hayden Birdsong after we talked about him yesterday, the performance he's put up. But we'll go with Landon Roop, and it's almost like the world has forgotten about Kyle Harrison. And so we'll talk about him, and does he fit in that bullpen mix, or does he go to AAA to work on whatever? So that's my 5-man rotation. Again, with Roop winning that fifth starter spot, just throwing it out there. We've had some reporting too. Baggerly seems to have some inside information saying that Roop has leapfrogged everyone and looks to be the leader to take that role down. So Ryan Walker is easily my closer. He was so good last year. Tyler Rogers is certainly on this team. Camilo Doval is certainly on this team. Eric Miller, only lefty right now, for sure, like scheduled to be in that bullpen. That's 22. And then I think Sean Jelly has certainly earned with the season he had, a spot on this team, although it possibly debatable because they have so many guys who could, like Tristan Beck and Hayden Birdsong and on and on and on. But I think Jelly, after what he did last year, deserving of a spot. And then it's tough. So that's 23 players. And so we only have 3 more spots, and it's bullpen guys. And so is it Kyle Harrison? Is it Lou Trevino? Is it Randy Rodriguez? Is it Keaton Wynn? So that's 4 guys I just named. And then continuing to look at options there, you've got Hayden Birdsong, who I didn't put on the roster yet. You've got Tristan Beck. That's 6. And then I think that Trevor McDonald, Carson Seymour, Carson Ragsdale, and possibly even Mason Black were already optioned. Mason Black, maybe not. But that's 6 guys, 3 spots. The question is just, who do they want to be stretched out as a starter down in AAA, and who do they want not getting stretched out as a starter in the bullpen? Like, Hayden Birdsong may be better than all these other guys, but do they want him in the bullpen? He didn't pitch at all in the bullpen last year, even in the minor leagues. It's been a couple years since he's pitched in the bullpen. I think like since 2022, since he's even maybe a couple times in 2023 that he's pitched out of the bullpen at all. And so I'm not sure. And they need to fill out a AAA rotation too. And then there's other guys like Joey Lucchesi, who was mentioned earlier, and other non-roster options. And so this is why I say your guess is as good as mine for these last 3 spots. I think maybe Kyle Harrison is just a guy to bring it to be that second lefty rather than a Joey Lucchesi, because Harrison has a lot of upside and it hasn't really showed up in the best way as a starter. So I'll go with Kyle Harrison kind of making the team and just being a long reliever and see how he does. And if he dominates, then maybe he moves into the rotation at some point. But I kind of like him on this team as opposed to a Joey Lucchesi. But then again, Harrison can be optioned. Lucchesi, it's a minor league contract and he could opt out. Harrison has all 3 option years remaining. So definitely a guy who could be sent down. And I don't know, Randy Rodriguez, maybe. This is impossible. Keaton Wynn, what do you do with him? I say Tristan Beck makes it, although I'm not sure. It could easily be Hayden Birdsong, and it probably should be. And so this is what I'm saying. There's so much depth, and it's hard to make decisions here. And it really comes down to who do they want to be starting in AAA to get those innings built up, so that when inevitably there's underperformance or an injury, somebody's ready to go. So I'm kind of just taking a pass on those last 3, and I hope you forgive me for not being concrete. But that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew On A. MLB fantasy draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. Helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.